everyone. Thank you for joining Bloomington Chamber Town Talk. We're going to give this a couple minutes for people to join the program. As we do, we have a slide up just kind of on some technical information. So hopefully, make sure this is from a sound and video perspective. I do encourage you to think about some questions as we're going. If you have some already, use the Q&A function, or you can also use the chat feature. And as we go along, I'll try to get to as many, if not all of them, as possible. So thank you for joining, and we'll get started, like I said, in just a couple minutes as more people join the program. Boy, as we're doing this, that's made me think about kind of our pre-conversation about music, and this would be an opportunity to have some kind of lead-in music that we could use before we get started. You know, we're still, you know, we've done this, you know, the virtual programming for a while, but we can get better at it. So,
anyway. Brent, it sounds like an excuse, Brent, but this is a new headphone. And it's very good at filtering out the background noise. So I actually have tried to play with this headphone. It doesn't pick up the music. It only picks up voice. Sounds like an excuse, I know, but it's not. I assure you it's not.
Well, one of the big things when we had a lot of in-person programs, especially the big events, is this whole, you know, walk on, walk off music for people as they get to the stage and that sort of thing, you know, and people are very particular about, oh, I want to use this song, I want to use that. Of course, now there's, you know, probably there's copyright issues and all that kind of stuff. So I'd have to work through that a little bit, but we can get there. Anyway, we'll get started here. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for joining. I'm sure some other folks will be coming on board as we're talking here. But thank you to everyone who's attending Bloomington Chamber Town Talk. My name is Brent Pavia. I am the president of the Bloomington Chamber, which is an affiliate of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, where I serve as vice president of community and economic development. Chamber Town Talk really is devoted to the local geography in the Bloomington South Metro area. And I'm really pleased to be able to offer this session where we talk about talk with two folks who are involved with really interesting, important companies around the tech world that may be under the radar screen a little bit for many of you. As we go along, you see at the bottom of this slide some of the social media links, and please use those as we go along. And I also want to, before we get going on the conversation, thank our sponsors for what they're able to do to be able to make this possible. We couldn't do this work without them. You see their logos on the screen here. So our sponsors, Mall of America and My Credit Union, who specifically focused on a lot of the work that we do in Bloomington, and then Centerpoint Energy, Wells Fargo, and Xcel Energy. Couldn't do this without them, and really appreciate their support as we go along. So thank you, and there's opportunities galore on the sponsorship side. I might have some time to talk about that at the end, we'll see. But I really want to get into the program now, and first of all, introduce and thank our two speakers for being here. As you see on the screen, David Adams is the Director of Strategic Initiatives at SICK Incorporated, and Thomas Sonderman is the President and CEO of Skywater Technology Foundry. I'm going to ask each of them to kind of just talk a little bit about an overview, a history about their companies, who they are, what they do in a real, I asked them to be very kind of general business information, not get too kind of specific on the technical side of things. And I said, you know, that was because that's what the audience reflected. But really, that's just for me, because not that I'm a Luddite or anything, but I am kind of a late adopter on the technology side. I think I was the last person in the office to have a BlackBerry. And anytime there was a an IT or system failure, I was always blamed. It's like, oh, Brent's trying to make that BlackBerry work with the system. So, so this is really kind of dumbing it down for Brent. But again, I want to start. I'm going to start with Dave and Sick, and just give us a little bit of what an overview of your company, and we can go from there.
Outstanding. Well, hello, everybody. I see we've got 14 participants. So hello to all the participants out there. And Brent, thank you for putting this together today. Really very much appreciate the invitation for Tom and I to be here. So let's start by demystifying Sick. I don't know how many of you have heard of Sick, but everyone often wonders, what is Sick? What is it a healthcare company? What do they do? No, it's not a healthcare company. So here's the story of Sick. So Sick was, believe it or not, was founded 75 years ago. So we were founded 75 years ago out of a garage in Germany. And believe it or not, we like to think that Sick was one of the very first garage-based companies to have started in the world 75 years ago. So there we were. There was this guy by the name of Dr. Erwin Sick, and it's pronounced Sick in German, if anyone's wondering. So Sick, but we all say Sick. But it was Dr. Erwin Sick was an engineer. There he was in post-World War II Germany during this massive industrialization and massive industrial boom in Germany. And he saw a huge opportunity to use his engineering skills to to solve a huge problem that was happening during industrialization. And that problem was people were getting hurt. People are losing limbs, people are losing lives, people are losing legs in the factories in Germany because industrialization was happening so quickly. So he, got to his garage and created the world's first safety scanner. And what a safety scanner does for everybody here, and Brent, don't worry, you're not going to see a safety scanner show up in your BlackBerry phone. Don't worry. But what a safety scanner does is it'll shut down a piece of equipment like a metal press or something that's very dangerous inside of an industrial environment, and it'll stop it immediately to save lives. So I go through the history because what's really near and dear. I've been at Sick now for about 8 years, and what's near and dear to me is the core of Sick and what we do in industrial automation is based on creating communities that thrive and keeping people safe and bringing and adding productivity and helping companies become run more effectively through the sensors that we build. So fast forward to now, we are 10,000 people strong. We have companies or subsidiaries in over 50. We have over 50 subsidiaries in 28 countries around the world. And our business is all about, has grown to, we have 40,000 sensors in our product portfolio. So we started, Dr. Erwin Sick started with that one back in 1946. Now we're at 40,000 industrial sensors that help companies keep people safe, help productivity, help people detect packages on a conveyor belt. So it's really, I look at Sick as like an ingredient technology for companies like what Tom is going to talk about. So we help companies like Tom's become more effective and more efficient, and we keep people safe. So Sick, again, is the last name of our German founder. It doesn't stand for anything, and it's really quite funny because it is actually a point of pride for our branding because it is really such an unusual name. So that's who Sick is. So again, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dave. All right, Tom, let's hear about SkyWater.
Great, and again, thanks for the invite. It's always exciting to not only hear where products like ours go, which are into solutions like Dave just described, but also to talk about SkyWater and really what we're doing to transform the semiconductor manufacturing industry. As far as a little bit of data, so SkyWater was created in March of 2017. We spun out of Cypress Semiconductor. Cypress had acquired the facility back in the early 90s. The fab actually goes back to 1986. Was built by Control Data. There's another sister fab across the street called Polar Semiconductor. And when the business was spun out in 2017, it was via a private equity transaction from Oxbow Industries. Oxbow is a PE firm here based in Minnesota, I think in Park St. Louis, Minnesota. and they have been a great partner with the management team to essentially take what was a captive manufacturing operation and transition it to an independent business that provides manufacturing services for companies that design computer chips. So if it's your, smartwatch or your phone, we're now beyond Blackberries. We're into iPhone. Oh, by the way, Brent, going to pass that along. The whole idea is making it very efficient for our customers to co-create technologies with us that can impact the market in very unique ways. A couple other unique aspects is that we are, believe it or not, the only U.S.-owned, U.S. investor-owned, and U.S.-based semiconductor manufacturer today. The industry has moved, obviously, to Asia. That trend was really continuing until COVID hit. And I think, as you read in the news, there's a lot of energy in Washington now to repatriate semiconductor manufacturing. Today, we're at 12%. The goal is to, by the end of the decade, to be back to 30%. Semiconductor manufacturing was created here, and it's really the heart of our high-tech industry. I like to say it's the fuel of the 21st century. So it's been exciting to transition our company. We now, we started out with one customer. We have now over 30 plus customers, and we're, very tightly coupled with the U.S. government. We recently completed an expansion of our facility. Mayor Bussey was actually at our ribbon cutting to essentially bring a new generation of space-based electronics to industry, specifically for the U.S. government through the Department of Defense, now the Space Force that we're all hearing about, as well as to commercialize these type of technologies for the commercialization of space and other applications. So, a real trend breaker. We were actually expanding and building facilities in the U.S. when, again, the trend was to do it all in Asia. We also recently expanded our operations into Kissimmee, Florida. This was done through a public-private partnership with Osceola County and the U.S. government. And this is to bring additional manufacturing capability back to the United States, an area called advanced packaging. We do wafer fabrication here in Bloomington, and then advanced packaging is how you kind of move through the value chain to ultimately create products that go into the solutions that Dave described. In fact, SICK is actually one of the customers that we're engaging with. So another important milestone. So we spun out in March of 2017. This past April 23rd, just over 3 weeks ago, we completed our IPO, raised $112 million that is going to be used to fund the next round of growth. Of course, this is uniquely tied to, again, a lot of the discussions going on in Washington. We were honored to participate in the CHIP Summit that President Biden held a few weeks ago. For those that actually saw him holding up a wafer, that was a Skywater wafer made right here in Bloomington.
No kidding.
It was not, yeah, many people don't. We're in a quiet period because of our earnings are coming up, but I assure you we'll make sure people become more aware shortly. But it was a great testament to that Rad Hard program is actually tied to that investment that we broke ground on back in the fall of 2019, and then are very close to starting to actually create products as we go into next year. So again, we're the only U.S. investor-owned semiconductor company. We just went public. There's a lot of excitement about the technologies we're doing and bringing to market through our technology as a service model. We like to say that we're patient, waiting for things to happen, but we're also impatient with some of the solutions that are being proposed. And so we really feel like some of the technologies that we're working on are going to transform the industry, and it's going to happen right here in Minnesota. So we're very, very happy to be part of bringing high tech and really semiconductor manufacturing. Many people don't realize it started here in Minnesota with Sperry and Control Data, Cray. A lot of that is going to be coming back, and Skywater is glad to be part of it. So look forward to the conversation today. Thanks.
Very cool.
Great. Yeah, that's very helpful. You know, as both of you were talking, it made me think a little bit about these categories that we throw out there, and maybe they're a little dated or overgeneral because, you know, do you think of a primary or substantial part of the work that you do as manufacturing, and it's just you know, high tech, and maybe we're all technology companies or we die to a certain extent, or is you know, and how is that reflected in your workforce in terms of, you know, the people that you need and the education and training to be able to do the various jobs that are essential for you guys to succeed? Whoever wants to take that first.
Yeah, go ahead, David. You want to start?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, yeah, you go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, no, I mean, you
I'll
just hit the
amplify.
nail on the head. And it's actually a really important topic, and it comes up a lot. Is, you know, we've tended to move towards I'll call it a software centric ecosystem, and a lot of the best college graduates are going into software. But there's also, in the end, the importance of manufacturing things. And I think a country needs to manufacture things to be successful. And we really learned that the hard way when COVID hit. So there's going to need to be a shifting, and a lot of it's just driven by where the jobs are. You know, that's why people get education so they can move into the market, you know, and be successful. And I think we need to have more focus on that. I will say that as a manufacturing company, you know, here in the heart of Minnesota, we have had no difficulties finding people to work in our fabs. We hire a lot of engineers from University of Minnesota and across the country in this area, you know, Iowa State, you look in the region. You know, I believe that the trend for manufacturing is here. It's here to stay. And that's going to create more demand for those type of positions. And I think it's going to be important that we recognize not only the investment and creating, you know, a more manufacturing centric, you know, mindset in this country, which we used to have, but also that we expand to not just think about university programs. We have a lot of maintenance technicians that keep the tools that we use to do this atomic level manufacturing. And we need apprentice programs, better programs as people come out of, you know, the armed services and move them into the commercial market, better training programs. So I think there's a lot we can do. And it's a great question that needs to be talked more about. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, no, Tom, you said quite a bit there. I mean, I think, you know, a couple of, just as you were talking, just to tell a very personal story. I've got two kids now, 14 and 16. And one of the conversations that we have in our household is actually just kind of a reflection of what's going on in the world, right? So a lot of our conversations at home are talking about what are they going to do for their careers. And right now, I am very much encouraging them to look at the STEM type careers, go into engineering, because, Tom, of exactly what you're saying. It's like the mega trend that's going on in society right now is this acceleration of the kind of repatriation of American and kind of the renaissance of American manufacturing. We're certainly seeing that with our customers. So a lot of obviously here we're a U.S. subsidiary, so we serve manufacturers around the U.S. And we're really seeing a lot of our customers investing not only in their factories and their, you know, tooling up to create more efficiencies in their factories, but also investing in those education programs, in those STEM education programs. Tom, I agree. I think, you know, we need to look at from, you know, here in Minnesota, you know, I think, Brent, many years ago when I attended a chamber event, we were talking about the education gap, right? And the impending workforce gap. And that's a real issue we're facing here in Minnesota in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So we really need to address this education gap, and how can we focus kids to not only, and Tom, you were saying something about, you know, the different types of education programs. There's the university programs, there's the 2-year accreditation programs. I think education is going to look different. I think it's going to look different over the next couple of years in terms of, you know, you might not need a 4-year university degree. Case in point is robotics. You know, robotics and mechatronics is an amazingly interesting career path for kids, because it's a 2-year program, and it's in very, very high demand right now because we just don't have that skill set. So it's a very difficult skill set to hire for. So Tom, I'm rambling a bit here, but I think to put a fine point on, education is an absolutely critical topic for us as we look into the future, and really getting young people excited about engineering. Because I think we've gotten away over the last 20 years, we've gotten away from manufacturing, right? We've gotten away from building stuff with our own hands here in the US. We've kind of went down this path of software was the most exciting career. So a lot of kids are going off into software engineering, right? But manufacturing is where it's at. And that's how, in my view, is that's how we're going to build the a country of the future, is to do all the work, Tom, that you got me all excited about what you guys are up to with the only fully U.S. investor-owned semicon company. I wasn't aware of that. That's an amazing statistic that you got to be really proud of. So, anyways, I ramble here, but education is absolutely critical. How do we create different education programs? How do we get companies to create apprenticeships to bring that education talent into our companies?
Yeah, one thing.
A few thoughts. A lot there.
Want to add to that, just came to mind, is we have in our facility in Florida, Osceola County not only helped build the facility, but they created a STEM school right next door. So now imagine you've got 300 students, STEM students, and they can go visit a high-tech manufacturing facility. And it's all part of an initiative to bring high-tech jobs to Central Florida. They obviously are very tied to the tourist community. A lot of the jobs tend to go in that direction. And so it was a concerted effort to create, they call it Neo City, so high-tech jobs coupled with a STEM school. And it's a great concept, and it shows with a public-private partnership what you can do. So I totally agree. By the way, I have a 17-year-old son who all he keeps talking about is going into IT, and I keep reminding him that his dad is a manufacturer.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
And just one quick, can I just build a little bit more on Tom, or Brent, you're going to have an easy job here because I think Tom and I are just going to talk.
go for it.
Tom, to build on another idea is that many of our customers are doing what you're doing. They are creating partnerships with high schools to create internships at the high school level. So they're bringing high schoolers in, and the most interesting stories are coming out of those opportunities, because these high school kids, these really sharp STEM high school kids, have a completely different perspective on the world, and they are actually innovating new solutions for some of our customers, because they don't have any baggage from their education, interestingly, right? And the other, so I think there's a huge, for our audience on the phone, I think there's really an interesting way for companies to look at the different schools around our region and create partnerships with what you're doing in Florida, Tom. The other thing you're getting me all excited about is, one of the things that I love about SICK is that because we are a German company, apprenticeships are a big deal, because the German education system is very different than the US education system. For example, in Germany, they'll take interns when they're 18, 19 years old. And amazingly, most of these interns end up staying with SICK in Germany. So imagine by the time they're 29, they've got 10 years of experience under their belts. It's really, really neat. And we are copying that methodology, that way of education here in Bloomington. So we have a really strong internship program as well, where same sources, Tom. We go to University of Minnesota and the great institutions, or even the community colleges around here will find interns.
And Normandale.
In Normandale, yep. So there's a great, for all the participants, that's a really interesting grassroots way of building a really strong community. Is just what can we do to reach out to our kids and help them, see the really the stability and certainty of having a career in manufacturing.
Yep. Great point.
That's great. We had the Bloomington High School robotics team present at a board meeting not too long ago. Just really impressive work, and I think being able to highlight those programs and the students who are interested in that is essential. I would quibble a little bit, Dave, with your characterization about the timeline of urgency around having the workforce needs met. I think it's probably right at our doorstep now.
Yeah,
as
I think
opposed
you're
to,
right.
down a
I
little
was
bit.
right. I think
But
you're
you know,
right.
one of the things that I think, just on a broad perspective, and I'd be curious your company's perspective is, you know, traditionally tech has been not maybe the most expansive career from a, you know, diversity and inclusion perspective, very, you know, male dominated, not necessarily having a lot of people of color. You know, not that your two organizations are going to solve that. I think that's an all-in for all of us. Educational system, the chamber has a role there. But what are your thoughts on that in terms of broadening the people who are interested and able to connect in those careers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you want me to start, Dave?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll
Yeah,
keep
I
building.
mean, I think it's all about awareness, and it's actually a fantastic point because I went to an engineering school, and when you start out in engineering school, I mean, it was, I'm thinking 80% guys, right out of the bat when you're going to school, and then you get into the industry, and that has just been the trend. And I think a lot of it has to do with outreach and making, you know, creating awareness about the opportunities that exist. And especially in engineering, I think there's, and I'll use the analogy, my dad was in the Air Force, you know, it used to be where you could, you know, only men could fly airplanes. Now, some of the best pilots are females. The whole idea is creating access, awareness, and then opportunity. I know within the semiconductor industry, we have what's called the Global Semiconductor Association. They have outreach programs, and it's kind of making people feel comfortable that you can have a career in this industry and get growth opportunities. And I know as a small company, you know, we're just north of 500 employees. It's something that we're actively talking about and coming up with solutions for, so that it's, you know, I'm proud to say I think we're close to 20% females in our company, which may not sound like a great statistics, but in our industry, it's you know, north of a more traditional number. So there's a lot of work to do, and I think it's something that we have to pay attention to. But I think is, if you just link up what we just talked about, creating these new manufacturing centric jobs, there's a whole population, you know, it's not just a portion of the population available. Everybody should be considered as part of the pool that you can draw from to create the best workforce possible. I think that's something we all have to pay attention to.
Yeah, I think it's a really, I think, you know, again, I always start with personal stories. So this past winter, we were lucky enough, because of the COVID situation, that we were able to take advantage of the kids being in school and being online. And we actually spent the winter this year down with my family in Brazil. So my wife is Brazilian, so we got to spend the winter in Brazil. The reason I bring that up is because what was fascinating about the trip is seeing Minnesota from the outside, right? Having a new perspective on Minnesota from the outside. And this reason for that intro is the relationship right now with Minnesota from the outside is complex. We're in a complex environment right now. It was fascinating being in Brazil, hearing from Brazilians about, oh, you're from Minnesota. That's where all the unrest was, right? And there's a really, really interesting, and I never considered it, because here we are in Minnesota. We don't think about the outside in perspective. But right now, there's a very complex relationship with Minnesota because of all the unrest that we had, and the concern, and that we continue to have, right? And it's we're working it out as a community. Right. So I think this topic of DEI is absolutely critical right now. And I think as community leaders, we need to start having those conversations. Tom's first comment starting off here was about awareness, right? We need to start having those conversations in our organizations today, to start having the conversation, to start, you know, it starts in the workplace. We spend how much percentage of our time, you know, of our days at our jobs away from our families. It's got to start, right? Well, obviously it starts in the families, but it's got to start at the workplace as well, to reinforce these messages of the importance of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because we have the same issue at SICK. I mean, we are an engineering company, and we are predominantly white male. right? And we are taking very, active steps to look at that and to start being more, to be aware. The work that we're doing is to be aware of our bias, and to be really, when we're in hiring conversations, to be very, very mindful of that natural bias.
Yeah.
And we're really taking those, through training, through conversations, and getting the conversation, in the front of our minds. We're taking those active steps to address it, because it is an issue not for only us, but again, when you take the community perspective, we need to really face that as business leaders, because we need to bring people to work in Tom's plants. We need to be able to recruit people from out of state to work at our SICK manufacturing plants, as well as our SICK and our sales operations. And we need to think about how to make Minnesota really attractive, and to reduce the complexity of that relationship that we have right now with other states and other countries.
Yeah.
We actually see it, just one more comment on hiring as well, going to the complex nature of where we're close to closing a deal with a new recruit, but the family is concerned about having to move to Minnesota because of that unrest.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it's I think over time that'll evaporate a little bit, but it's something that we have to be aware of.
No, frankly, it's just like all things, there's an opportunity there, right? There's an opportunity for we as the business community. There's an opportunity. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the actions are, but there's an opportunity for us to say, hey, we are that diverse community. We are that community that has an educational base. We are that community that's a phenomenal place to live. By the way, when you compare Brazil and Minnesota, Minnesota's pretty, it's got some really good things going for it. Let me just put it that way. I love Brazil. Don't get me wrong.
No, but that is key to getting outside of very kind of insular perspectives that I think we can be, and maybe the pandemic has added to that to a certain extent.
Yes.
But it's part of the reason why we lead inner city leadership visits every year to go to peer metro areas, find out what's working there, what isn't, connect with other folks, and get that perspective from outside of our area, because sometimes there is a lot of that kind of introspection that we need to kind of break out of on occasion. But having said that, I want to kind of focus a little more locally. One of our questions from a board member asks about Bloomington specifically, and I'm going to start with Dave on this one, because I know that and I don't know what the origin story is, but SICK's U.S. headquarters has been in West Bloomington for a while now, and
40 years,
and you just have committed to a new site closer to Skywater in the South Loop area, and a new facility. So there's expansion, and I'm sure there's some work, probably some people on the call as well, to keep you in Bloomington. But what works in Bloomington? What's been good about having your U.S. headquarters here? And what do we need to continue to do to attract tech in this area?
Those are all very good questions. I was not, and to be totally upfront, I was not involved in the negotiations with the city of Bloomington, but from what I understand, city of Bloomington was outstanding. I think very open arms, very willing and curious, and very motivated to work with us to bring us to that beautiful piece of land by the Mall of America in Bloomington. So I think a big part of the attractiveness was that. I think it was the accommodation and willingness to work with us from the city of Bloomington. Again, I don't know the specifics of that, but I just know that there was a very general positive dealings with the city council and all that. So big kudos and shout out to the city of Bloomington on that.
What's kind of your time frame on that build out? I know it's going to take a while, but it's also nice when you're starting from scratch in a certain sense. And given everything that not only you need, but maybe have learned a little bit from this past couple of years of just oddity in terms of being able to create that full facility to meet your needs for now and the future.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons that Bloomington was so great to work with, is because we're taking a phased approach, right? We're taking a phased approach where, eventually in the next couple of years, again, timelines are still being created now, but in the next few years, we'll have all of our manufacturing and office facilities in that area. We actually have our groundbreaking. So you're all invited. Big scissors. I love those big scissors. Who doesn't love big scissors, right? But we'll have the ground breaking in June of this year. And we'll start slowly migrating over our facilities in June. And I think another point, Brent, just to bring up, is the other reason that we're so excited about this facility is the proximity to the airport, the infrastructure, the hotels. We have a lot of international visitors that come visit us. So we have a lot of, the hotels, and just location was a very, very big deal. The central location as well for the Twin Cities. So Bloomington is looking at the geography, it's got a lot, it's a crossroads of quite a bit. And I think Bloomington is really poised for growth as we go through this manufacturing renaissance. So
yeah, our former mayor and probably our current mayor might say the same thing, that Bloomington's at the center of the universe. So it's a perspective thing, but we do have a lot of things going for us, and it's nice to hear about the things that are differentiate us and really kind of help support your growth and expansion. And Tom, you made the decision too. You expanded your facility recently. You talked a little bit about that, and to meet those needs. And you have a beautiful site that you're on there. I remember visiting, and I don't know that I'd get any work done in your office because I'd be looking out at all the beautiful nature and everything.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, fair enough.
You guys don't see it, but I do. No, and what Dave said is really proven true last year. And so it was great to hear the reasons why he's expanding, or SICK is expanding here, is exactly why our customers love working with us. And it really manifested itself when COVID hit, because people couldn't travel. And one of the things that we have is the proximity effect. So you can be in California. Of course, you couldn't travel international, is what I meant. But we have people in California that can fly out here in the morning, be here all day, and fly home the same day, versus having to spend an entire week flying to Asia, maybe burn a week for a day's worth of meetings. And so there's an efficiency that has really taken hold. And I think, not only Bloomington's infrastructure, but also the location with the airport, and I would just call it the business-friendly mindset is really important. And I think we should figure out ways to continue to amplify that, make it, grow. And one of the things that, I think is important for this community, there's a lot of, activity in Washington right now around what's called the National Defense Authorization Act, and then what's called the derivative as part of that was called the CHIPS bill. And this is to bring $50 billion of investment into the U.S. for next generation, and not only manufacturing capability, but R&D in the semiconductor sector. And we need to make sure that our delegations are really amplifying that message. And I think it's part of selling Bloomington, selling what we're doing here, the fact that there's already a foothold between our fab, Fuller Fab, Seagate is based here, SICK is expanding here, and it's really a strong message. So, New York, Arizona, California, they always seem to get the headlines, and we need to make sure that we're all doing our part, not only through Senator Klobuchar, Senator Smith, is that right, Tina Smith?
Yep.
And then the local, Dean Phillips, who was at our ribbon cutting last fall as well. These are powerful messengers for our community, and we need to be more cohesive. If there's any input I can give, when I see what we're doing down in Osceola County, Florida, with that local community, there's a nice connection across the spectrum, and I think that's something that we can be more effective, in Minnesota. So that's something we should all take away. What can we do to get a more unified message? Because the unified message really amplifies when a lot of other voices are also talking.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Tom, and that's certainly at the heart of a lot of the work that we do at the chamber, and need to build out more. And so I appreciate hearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, real quick, we are involved with the Department of Commerce and Senator, our Secretary Raimondo, and there's actually a meeting next week where she's soliciting inputs. DOC is very involved with this whole activity because it's all about jobs, right? And that's really what's driving this. So I think the more unified we get with the message, and then get the voices to be heard up in DC is going to be important, because I guarantee you Chuck Schumer and that team will be pulling as many dollars as they can into New York, and we've already heard about Arizona. And frankly, here in Minnesota, we don't need billions. Billions are nice, but millions are also nice. And you can sometimes stay below the fray. So it's great doing business here in Minnesota and Bloomington specifically.
No, that's great to hear. I think this is a kind of pro forma question I've had to ask for the last year and a half, and maybe I won't in the near future. But just how has business changed or been affected from the COVID-19 pandemic? In the recent past or currently, and are there some changes that you are making or will make based on that, whether it's specifics around supply chain, whether it's kind of health and wellness, or we talked a little bit probably pre-call about just meetings and in-person safety issues. I'm just wondering what's been the short-term and long-term effects of the pandemic on your business.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave. You want to start?
I mean, Dave got to be in Brazil for most of the year, so I guess that's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that's a big piece of it, right? The big piece of it is how. I mean, I think we've all heard this from all the different panels and discussions and papers and articles that we've been reading. But I mean, the workforce is different. The workforce is it's you're not tied to a specific location anymore. Knowledge work is never going to look the same. I think we've again don't want to revisit that theme that we're hearing about all the time, but it's really, I mean, it's real. And there I was, right, and I was able to be part of that, and I didn't miss a beat. I did not miss a beat through the comfort of using technology and through the comfort of video conferencing, and all I needed was a really fast internet connection, and it worked. And other people are starting to do the same thing. I think the way business, and one of the huge side effects of COVID is that people will really re-examine face-to-face meetings. I think face-to-face meetings are going to be absolutely critical, because you can't replace that human interaction. Brent, I think you're listening to what I'm saying, but you look interested, but I can't quite. I really look forward to seeing you in person.
I perfected that look interested look, but I really am listening to you, Dave.
You really are. Okay, good, excellent. So I mean, I think there's so many implications. There's this incredibly interesting article. If you guys are Economist readers, 2 weeks ago, there was an article about diplomacy and how diplomacy has been impacted by COVID. Really interesting article, because it obviously trickles down into the business world, but it's all about another big theme is acceleration. It's acceleration of being able to attend meetings, the acceleration of our work, the acceleration of back-to-back meetings. So the overall acceleration of business has been another huge theme. I think we were really fortunate, and Tom and I had a conversation on this as well. We were really fortunate to be designated as an essential business during the crisis. So we honestly never experienced a lull like a lot of business, probably business owners on this call right now, because our sensors were critical to keeping e-commerce moving, to keeping factories building, to keeping food being built, to inspecting toilet paper rolls. We are very, very critical to those efforts. So we have the impact of COVID on our business has been nothing but acceleration. We had an acceleration last year, and this year we are ramping up even quicker, because we're starting to see, and I think Tom and I talked about this with the demands. I think Tom is running 25/7, I think, Tom, is what you're probably running
Yeah.
to meet the demands in manufacturing. So overall themes, again, workforce is never going to be the same. Business has accelerated more than I think anybody imagined. All of the supply chain issues that we are faced with right now, who could have really predicted that? I think maybe some people did, but who could have predicted a shortage in chips because of people buying home electronics, because of the automotive market suddenly turning around. So overall, massive acceleration that is keeping us almost more busy and occupied than we were during trying to figure out a new normal during COVID.
Yeah, I
So
totally agree.
those are big themes that from the last year.
Yeah, and I'd amplify all that. The one thing that it was unique for Skywater is that, again, we were at the time just based here in Minnesota, and so we hadn't really used virtual technology.
Yeah.
Because we didn't like sick, you have places all over the world. So there was, and I had come from a much larger company before I joined Skywater, and you kind of get used to doing things virtually to a certain degree, just to interact with your colleagues across the globe. And we were able to, very quickly adopt and move into virtual collaboration. And I think it's really made us a lot more effective in many ways because people can get a better work, home life balance, frankly. If someone needs to go do something, when I first got here and took over, there was kind of like, you're in the building all day long as you're here. That's just the way it is. As a manufacturing company, that's kind of the mindset. And we've been able to really break out of that in a positive way. And I think now as the workforce comes back, people are, you kind of get the best of both worlds. We know how to virtually collaborate. That gives people flexibility, also allows us to, not necessarily force someone to come down to a conference room where maybe they're only needed for a small portion of the meeting. They can be in their cube or their office doing other things and, can chime in or join the call at the right time. So we've just seen a lot of benefits because of, again, the acceleration to virtual collaboration, but also, as you alluded to, just the change in demand for semiconductors and computer chips. I think we're seeing literally what would happen over a decade happen over a period of years, and the recalibration of supply chains is having a big impact. So, for instance, when and this actually started happening before COVID hit, when the tariff wars were going on. But China essentially isn't producing electronics near the way they were, previously. And I think that is causing supply chains to shift. We have a large automotive customer, Infineon, who is moving product out of China to companies like Skywater. And it's great, for our business, but I think it's something that won't just be here, for a couple of years. I think these are decade type shifts, and I don't believe the U.S. is going to create the vulnerability we had before, where we thought we could have everybody else make things and we would just buy them and become more of a true services economy. I think that has changed, and it'll be really important as communities and as patriots in our country, that we continue to embrace how important it is to manufacture things. We I think need to place value in the jobs. I mean, one of the struggles I have is hiring what we call fab operation technicians to work in our fab because they're getting very competitive offers from other places that maybe the high tech nature. And so that means we need to relook at our salary structures, how we can create stickiness when we hire, great employees, so they don't want to, leave just because someone's offering them maybe a higher near-term, wage. I think there's a lot of things, and now that we're a public company too, I think it becomes a little bit more easier to attack and retain and grow really good talent. But it's something as a community, again, that I think we need to think about is how do you make someone who is 18, 20 years old want to work, in a fab doing high tech work, and maybe help provide their college degree, funding for their college degree, versus working at maybe, a job that doesn't have that high-tech nature. You don't have to put on clean room. All of our employees, of course, that work in the fab are putting clean room suits on. Some people don't like to do that. So
Yeah.
these are challenges we're having to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wanted to get to, we had a question submitted by actually one of the Bloomington City Council members who serves as the board liaison with the chamber. And I'm just going to read what he asks. And it may be tough because this is kind of predicting the future and trends, but part of the thing is to look down the road and figure that out. So what are the major technology trends for the future that you're seeing? We hear a lot about software as a service, Internet of Things, autonomous transportation, all sorts of things. Maybe those are in the past already, but what are the major personal, business, and policy considerations and impacts of these trends for you?
Yeah, great question. I have to
Really
jump
good
in,
question.
though.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know you're rearing to go on this one.
Yeah, yeah. So that literally is, we refer to that, at least at Skywater, and others do as well. It's kind of the fourth wave of computation. So if you go back in time, we started out with mainframes, companies like Control Data, these IBM, company called Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC. They used to make these big mainframe computers. And then the PC era hit, and that was Intel, AMD, IBM, others making, the desktop boxes. And then we moved to laptops. And then we hit the smartphone era, which is really what's been happening over the last 10, 12 years. It's hard to believe that it was only in 2000, I think, 8 that the iPhone came on the market. So think of all the innovation, all the change that has occurred as a result. So now we're really entering that, what we call the next wave, the fourth wave, where you're getting into autonomous vehicle application, artificial intelligence, and it's really all about connecting things through your phone and also moving computation closer to the point of access. If you think like, I just bought a toothbrush that, unbeknownst to myself, that I could actually connect to my phone. I have no reason to know why I would want to do that. A lot of it has to do with the sensors that SICK makes. You're connecting things. Great. I like to say you're taking the analog world and converting it to the digital world. And as part of that, you're improving the experiences of individuals, making it easier for them to make better decisions. The movement of health into electronics is becoming huge. The smartwatch is basically going to become a medical device. If you just look where the trends are, certainly the things we're working on. So I think that we are not only at an exciting time, and part of the reason Skywater has been so successful is we co-create with our customers. We drive innovation with our customers, and we're at a point in the market where there's a need for innovation. The other is there's an end based on physics to what's called Moore's Law. Moore's Law essentially has dictated kind of the trends, making things smaller, making things faster. Again, just think of it as computational horsepower in a smaller form factor. Well, physics is going to dictate that something beyond silicon is going to be required. And so technologies like carbon nanotubes, superconductors, various types of what's called MEMS devices, which are mechanical, electrical systems. These are all going to become dominant, along with advanced packaging, the way you connect all these circuits together, all these devices together. That's really what's going to dominate the next decade. And that's really what's got the US government and Skywater and other companies so excited, is because it's much like when the industry moved into cracking, using for being able to get gas out of shale. So for many years, all of the entire oil industry was essentially dominated in the Middle East until innovation created a new technology that allowed us to create energy independence and leverage capabilities and resources that we had here domestically. I think that's what you're going to see happen over the next decade. We're not going to compete to try to replicate what Asia has done with the current state of semiconductor manufacturing. We're going to innovate into a whole new space, and that's what's going to enable a lot of these emerging technologies that we talked about. So it's a super exciting time, not only for domestic manufacturing, but for innovation and the awareness of the U.S. government and, you know, essentially the country at large, that we need to be doing this here in the U.S. We put the investment, the public-private partnerships. We can, you know, get back to 30% of the, you know, semiconductors being made here in the U.S. And again, that's foundational to the information economy.
Sounds like this should be the topic of another
I
program.
think so.
Because this has got really
Yeah, I'm all
a lot
fired
of
up.
legs
Yeah.
to it.
It really does. It really does. We got 4 minutes left. Can I just add one thought to that?
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom, what's really interesting about your fourth wave of computation, it marries so closely with what we call the Industry 4.0, right? Or
Right, exactly.
otherwise known as the Industrial Internet of Things.
Right.
So what we're seeing in the manufacturing space, what you're talking about is connectivity, right? That's the big theme of what you're talking about. Not only personal devices and you know, devices that we use in as consumers, but in SICK world, it's all about connectivity of sensors to create more intelligence and to create a better decision making in manufacturing. And I think to the one thing that's really on my mind is with all of this acceleration, with all this change, with all this innovation, one thing that's really important to keep in mind is how do we upskill and train our employees to be prepared for this shift in jobs. You know, one thing I've been thinking about a ton lately is artificial intelligence, and how artificial intelligence right now, people are very nervous about artificial intelligence because they feel like it's going to destroy jobs and take jobs away from people. Remember, and the only thing I would say in that, remember automation had a very similar theme, right? Automation, people were very nervous about automation and automation taking away jobs. No, they didn't. Automation hasn't taken away jobs. Quite the contrary, automation has created new jobs that didn't exist years ago, right?
Exactly right.
And I think with artificial intelligence, with the fourth wave of computation, with Industry 4.0, there's going to be a whole new category of jobs that we don't know about right now. And as the business community, we need to train our people to be prepared to shift their jobs into something completely new and different. So Tom, I share your enthusiasm about where we're at in business and society and the world right now, because it's really exciting. And I think the innovation and the improvements that we can create as a community are going to be remarkable.
Well, I have enjoyed this conversation tremendously. I'm sure our participants have, and it will be available for others. So thank you so much, Tom and Dave. Again, really appreciate you being able to take part in this, but look forward to getting together in the near future and continuing the conversation. Hopefully we are able to do some things in person. I have a thought. I was going to say it's a great idea, but I rarely have those. But we do have our annual golf tournament back in June, third Monday in June. You guys, I think SICK and Skywater, maybe you sponsor a hole, maybe you have a friendly competition amongst sports. I'm just saying,
no, we'll do it.
There's an opportunity there, but we really want to get people back together. And so, one of my predecessors in my role always used to guarantee beautiful, sunny, low 80s, the wind always at your back.
Like it is today.
I will continue with that.
Right.
We do have a lot of programs at the chamber, and we will start doing more hybrid and in-person things. But I encourage people on the call to look at mplschamber.com for programs. We're recruiting for Leadership Twin Cities for the 2021-22 class, so another great program to look at. And then we'll be doing another town talk in a couple months in July. And hopefully, I don't know yet in terms of topic or status, but hopefully that will be an in-person event as well. I did want to let everybody know too, if you were concerned, I do have a smartphone, but my colleague Anna says I need to save my shekels because it's probably going to be unsupported soon because it's a little older. So I will get a new one eventually. But again, thanks everyone, and thank you to our sponsors, Mall of America, My Credit Union, at CenterPoint Energy, Wells Fargo, and Excel Energy. Couldn't do this without you. Everyone have a great week, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Take
Thank
care,
you, Brent.
everyone. Yeah, thanks.
See you later, Tom.
Dave.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.